ever imagine that manufacturing would have influencers? Well, it does, online and in person, at trade shows too. And a select few are leading the movement. Hello and welcome to Assembly Audible. I'm your host, Jennifer Pierce, multimedia editor with Assembly Magazine and the host of our podcast, Assembly Audible, since January 2022. Our guest has quite a larger-than-life presence on social media, which led to building an audience of over 50,000 followers and 50 million views on social in less than 2 years. But his contagious optimism for his work and the industry in general isn't limited to the internet, because he's sitting right here with us today from the Assembly show floor. I'm talking about Jake Hall, the Manufacturing Millennial. Jake Hall, thank you for your energy and time. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. It's amazing to be here, just, sitting on the show floor with everyone, just, seeing new product around us. It's a lot of fun.
So is that a Chicago hat you're wearing?
It is. It's a Chicago Cubs hat.
Okay, so are you from this area?
My family's from Chicago, but I live in Michigan.
Okay, so you're representing today.
Absolutely.
Okay. So in all seriousness, though, I know you're not just a popular, friendly character on the internet. You have over a decade of experience working with manufacturers, system integrators, and distributors in the manufacturing and automation industry. Yeah. You comprehensively understand the importance of advocating Industry 4.0, digital technology, robotics, and automation solutions. So where should we start? How did you become the manufacturing millennial, and what is your mission?
Yeah, going back to where things started, 16 years old, I got my first job working in manufacturing, sweeping floors, cleaning the manual mills and the welding areas of a manufacturer, doing the grunt, dirty, dark work of what manufacturing has. Went to college, got a few engineering degrees, and then went into work for a distributor for about 7 years. And during that time as a distributor, I really began to recognize the massive gap in terms of age demographics that our industry has. Went to a conference and recognized I was the only person attending this future technology organization that was under the age of 40. And I said, you know what, I'm a millennial, I'm in manufacturing, I'm going to come up with this idea of the Manufacturing Millennial. And that's where the name came about. It really didn't come into play until beginning of 2020 when the pandemic and COVID hit, to where I said I need to reach an audience in a new way that a lot of people aren't doing, and that's through social media. So I started posting content on social media, highlighting what really cool technology and automation and robotics and what skilled trades is doing in our industry. And fast forward a couple years, and here I am.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm impressed. I mean, I'm new to this field and to assembly in general, and I know that when I started, you were one of the first people I found on LinkedIn, and I was like, this is the guy to follow.
Yeah.
One of, obviously a handful of people who are kind of leading this manufacturing, influencers.
Yeah, I mean,
do you consider yourself an influencer?
Influencer just has so many different terms out there. I like to say I'm an advocate for manufacturing. I like to go out there and just promote what we can to do to make our industry more attractive, more productive, especially in a global economy where there's competition all over the place. How do we create a lot of companies here in North America, small to medium-sized businesses, make them more competitive? And I think the biggest common denominator is going to be technology that's going to make them more productive, but also the technology that's going to attract the future workforce into our industry.
Okay. That's a perfect segue to our next question. So what's currently on your radar, the key issues you're watching or advice you're giving people?
Yeah, so I would say one of the biggest issues we're going to be facing in the manufacturing and automation industry is the workforce. And the fact is we have currently 700,000 open jobs in manufacturing right now. In 5 to 7 years, we're going to have over 2 million open jobs in manufacturing. So we're going to have this massive unfulfilled sector in manufacturing that's going to lead to hundreds of billions of dollars of lost productivity that we could be having here in North America. And so if we can go out there and take this misconception that a lot of these millennials and Gen Zs have towards manufacturing, that it's just this dark, dirty, dangerous, dull industry, but it's this industry that has a lot of technology, we can make it so manufacturers can actually make parts, they can make components because they have a workforce that can do that. And so that's one underlining issue, one thing I'm seeing and talking about it in the industry is workforce. The other one is the adoption of digitalization in manufacturing. So how do we make it where manufacturing is just not about the products, but it's also about the information and the productivity that we can get without there. Where it's not just how many parts can we produce on a line, it's how productive are we in actually making those components. And I think automation is one of those things as well that can say, I could take a small to medium-sized business company that is maybe 10, 50, 100 employees and make them a lot more competitive because a robot can do that boring, repetitive task that a human might get bored and have a hard time keeping retention on the floor because they don't want to do that.
That's interesting. Going off script a little bit, do you see a lot of potential, or maybe it's something I'm picking up on, but do you see a lot of potential for small manufacturers to grow in the next few years?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's where we're going to see a lot of growth happening because the really large manufacturers have always had the resources and the development teams to test and figure out and fail if they need to learn what's going to move them forward in terms of productivity. But I think what we're seeing now is a lot of small to medium-sized businesses now can leverage things like AI and machine learning to make what once was a kind of a dumb collaborative or industrial robot a lot smarter because they're leveraging vision systems or no-code programming that can make them enter the market at a lot lower capital expense than what traditionally they had to before. So now all of a sudden I can integrate a robot for end-of-line packaging or integrate a robot for machine tending that once was a very repetitive, boring task, and now I can automate that and then take that human and have them do a lot more purpose-driven job.
That's really fascinating. I'm sure there's a lot to consider there. One of the things that the keynote speaker, Mr. Wetherington, said that I thought was really interesting, because he worked, with large companies, thousands of people, and then found himself working with a company or representing 40 people.
Yeah.
And he was saying that when it's a smaller group, you can see results right away.
Yeah.
So you know what's working and what's not working. So it seems to me like that will allow small manufacturers to move faster. And I mean, I don't know if that's something.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look at manufacturers, at least in the U.S., 98.6% of manufacturers in the U.S. qualify as a small to medium-sized business. So the majority of companies here are small. And I think one of those things is a robot can easily impact a repetitive task to make them more productive, especially if you could all of a sudden take a machine that only had 6 hours of utilization and double that, because a robot can now run a lights out operation on a machine tending or CNCing operation. Now all of a sudden a small business can be a lot more productive and see a lot of results because they're able to do double their production without the need for another, hire.
Okay. So as you mentioned, I understand one of your areas of focus is finding the next generation of manufacturing workers. How can manufacturers get more young people involved in the industry?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that manufacturers and companies and businesses need to do is leverage their local resources a lot more. A lot of times we try and make the problem of resources bigger than what the actual issue is, where, we're having a mass, nationwide unemployment area, but if you as a company were more active in the local community colleges or the local universities or apprenticeship programs, or you were taking kids out of high school and getting them involved with tech centers and then training them right when they're high school and saying, listen, we're going to give you a purpose-driven career that's going to allow you to grow and move up within a company, that's something that a local company can do by themselves. They don't need a massive grant or initiative to make that happen. Those small impacts and changes can create a long-term effect. And I think that's just the biggest thing is manufacturers are more than likely local, and so is your workforce. So what are you doing to engage your local workforce through those schools and trade organizations?
Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. Excuse me. Not to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot. give me a little bit of like a forecast, a trend forecast, if you will, a prediction. What do you see happening in the future in any area that you would like to speak about? Of course, manufacturing.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the numbers right now, Gen Zs don't want to go into manufacturing. And they don't want to go because they don't understand what manufacturing is. So there was a study that was put out there saying like 34% of Gen Zs, so kids who are like in high school or younger right now, they want to go into a STEM career, but manufacturing was its own separate topic because they still view manufacturing as an industry that doesn't have science, technology, engineering, and math.
Right.
They view it as something different. And I think what we're going to see is the quicker companies adopt new technology, the quicker we're going to have a younger workforce being a part of it. As well as, I think, the sooner we have an older generation either retire or become more accepting of what a future workforce and how they operate and work, if we can communicate better to a younger generation on, we recognize their purpose, we understand the values that they want to be a part of that motivates them to be working for a company, the sooner we can see a lot more rapid growth in our industry.
Okay, great. Okay, so assembly has been around since 1958 and must have been around. I know there was a little fly.
There's a little fly
I was
going
like, we have a
around.
little friend. And so assembly must have been around, when you started your career.
Yeah.
So how is the assembly show different from other shows, and how is assembly, not the brand, but the process, a standout or a unique area?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing when we look at the show floor here and we see the type of, exhibitors and the people who are walking around, a lot of the people are here to find solutions to their problems.
Right.
And I think as we see on the floor right now, we see a lot of robots, we see a lot of collaborative, a lot of tools and processes that are designed around making the worker more efficient. And I think, that's what the assembly show is put together with the exhibitors that are here. It's a lot of not just technology, the newest technology, but it's also the product to make that worker more efficient. And I think that's what we're seeing at a lot of different shows, because every show has their own uniques and their own quirks, but one thing at assembly is, how do we make that human worker a lot more efficient and make them more productive and make their life easier? Because if their life's easier, they're probably going to stay, and you're going to have better retention as a company.
Not to be a creeper, but I did see a comment you made on social media, and there was somebody, she was saying that trade shows aren't necessary.
Yeah.
And there were tons of comments on that feed.
Yep.
And you said you see people making decisions on the show floor.
Absolutely.
Would you like to talk about that just a little bit before we close?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every industry has its own value in what a trade show is, right? If you're a complete software company and all you're doing is just showing a screen on your floor as a trade show booth, you're not getting that hands-on experience because you can do that digitally and there's value that way. However, in the manufacturing space, getting hands-on and interactive with products, I think, is the best way you're going to do it, because you're not going to be able to walk a show floor and see 40 or 50 different products that can immediately help you become more productive. And I think that's what we're going to see in trade shows, is that value that's never going to get replaced. But as well, I think it's the value that the exhibitor and the investment that the exhibitor puts into it is the investment that they're going to get out of it. If they're going to create a really engaging exhibit booth that's going to draw people in, of course you're going to get the MQLs and the leads that you want. But if you're going to go out there and you're just going to have a booth that just has a table with nothing that's engaging, you're probably not going to get a lot of engagement. So it's about the approach is, what are you doing that's going to excite and ignite the people walking by at the trade show to get the most value out of it?
Okay, one more question. I'm sorry. I feel like we could talk all day. I'm a talker, so I could just go on and on. Let's just order lunch, right?
There you go. Absolutely.
So at trade shows like this, are there any people who say, you know what, I see a lot of potential in this industry. I'm going to just start a business from scratch, or show up and learn what I can and see how I can get involved? Does anybody do that? Or are these mostly
absolutely.
people?
I mean, you're seeing a ton of startups right now in the manufacturing space. I mean, you can see that being true just by the amount of venture capital that's being dumped into manufacturing and robotics right now, especially in the AI, the machine learning, the automation side. There's a lot of startup companies that are happening. And I mean, walking the show floor here, I can look at least 10 or 15 companies on the floor that have gotten millions of dollars in investments in starting up new areas because of the adoption of technology is really pushing manufacturing forward. So a lot of companies see the value of that, where before venture capital was just like a .com or an app or a digital. Well, now that manufacturing is becoming more digital, we're seeing a lot more startups that way too.
That's exciting. Okay, well, thank you so much. That's all I have. Is there anything that you would like to add to close with?
No, that's great. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
So people can find you, obviously, on social media,
Yeah.
right? The Manufacturing Millennial.
Yes.
And do you have a website?
Yep, manufacturingmillennial.com.
Okay, great. Covering all your bases,
Yeah.
it seems like. All right, well, thank you for your time today.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to Assembly Audible. I'm Jennifer Pierce, multimedia editor with Assembly Magazine. For more insights on assembling discrete parts into finished products and the people behind it all, visit our website, assemblymag.com. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast to keep up with our latest episodes. We're also on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, so we invite you to follow us there too. This has been Assembly Audible with Jake Hall, the Manufacturing Millennial. Thank you for listening.